He built billion-dollar empires with ruthless precision, but one glance at three little faces at a carnival, and everything he thought he wanted crumbled like sand. Beckham Maddox had money, power, and influence, but not love. Not since the day he chose ambition over the woman who carried his children. What he didn't know was that she didn't just disappear. She became a mother to 3 boys who looked exactly like him. Hello, family. Before we begin this heart-healing journey, tell me, could you forgive a man who abandoned you during your most vulnerable moment if he returned years later, desperate to become the father he once refused to be? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like and share with someone who believes in second chances. And if you haven't subscribed yet, here at Narrative Jar, we bring you the most powerful love stories in the world. Now let's begin. Beckham Maddox had never been comfortable with crowds. The noise, the chaos, the unpredictability. It all went against his nature. As CEO of Westlock Ventures, he preferred boardrooms where he could control every variable, predict every outcome. But tonight, standing at the entrance of the downtown Atlanta Carnival, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: uncertainty. The carnival stretched before him like a living, breathing organism. Neon lights painted the evening sky in electric blues and pinks. The air was thick with the scent of funnel cake, caramel apples, and the distant aroma of barbecue from food trucks. Children's laughter mixed with the mechanical whir of rides, creating a symphony of pure, unfiltered joy. "You need to get out," his mentor Mr. Lewin had said earlier that week. "Not to another business dinner or corporate event. Somewhere real, somewhere that reminds you what life is about." At 42, Beckham had spent the last 5 years expanding Westlock across Europe and Asia. He'd closed deals worth hundreds of millions, acquired companies, and built an empire that stretched across 3 continents. But standing here now, watching families laugh together, he felt hollow. His phone buzzed, another message from his assistant about tomorrow's merger discussion. He almost answered, then stopped himself. Tonight was supposed to be different. He bought a ticket and wandered deeper into the carnival. The sounds grew louder, more vibrant. A jazz band played near the entrance, their music weaving through the night air like silk. Couples danced on a makeshift dance floor. Children ran between their parents' legs, sticky fingers clutching cotton candy. That's when he saw her. A woman with rich brown skin and braids pulled back in a high ponytail stood near the ring toss game, trying to balance a tray of snacks while corralling 3 energetic boys. She wore a simple sundress that flowed as she moved, and even from a distance, there was something graceful about the way she handled the chaos around her. The boys were maybe 5 or 6 years old, all different heights but unmistakably related. The tallest one climbed onto a nearby bench, while the middle child stayed close to her side. The smallest one had wandered toward the game booth, drawn by the colorful prizes hanging overhead. Beckham felt his breath catch. Even from 30 feet away he could see it. The sharp cheekbones, the distinctive cowlick that had plagued him since childhood, the same blue-gray eyes that stared back at him from the mirror every morning. His heart hammered against his ribs. The woman turned, scanning the crowd for the wandering boy, and their eyes met. Time fractured. Soraya Jameson, his former secretary, the woman who had vanished from his life 6 years ago without explanation, leaving only a resignation letter and an empty desk. She froze, recognition flooding her features. Her hand instinctively moved to her chest, and he saw her take a sharp breath. The boys continued playing, oblivious to the storm brewing between their mother and the stranger watching from across the carnival. Beckham's legs felt unsteady. He forced himself to move, weaving through the crowd toward her. Each step felt like walking through deep water, heavy and surreal. "Soraya?" His voice came out rougher than he intended. She didn't run. She didn't speak. She simply stood there, watching him approach with eyes that held a mixture of wariness and something else. Maybe sadness, maybe anger. "Mommy, look what I won." The smallest boy ran up, clutching a stuffed elephant. He looked up at Beckham with curious eyes, tilting his head. "Who's that?" "Just someone I used to work with," Soraya said quietly, her voice steady, despite the tension radiating from her body. The middle boy, more reserved, stepped closer to his mother. The tallest one jumped down from the bench and joined them, creating a small semicircle around Soraya. Beckham stared at them, these three little boys who looked like mirror images of his own childhood photos. The resemblance was undeniable, striking, impossible to ignore. "Are they—" he started. "Not here," Soraya cut him off. She glanced around at the families enjoying the carnival, then back at him. "Camille," she called to a young woman approaching with additional snacks, "watch the boys for a minute." The woman, her sister Beckham realized, took one look at the situation and nodded. "Come on, boys, let's go try the duck pond game." Soraya waited until they were out of earshot, then pulled a napkin from her purse. She found a pen and scribbled a number on it. "Call me tomorrow. We're not doing this here." She handed him the napkin, her fingers careful not to touch his. They deserve better than a carnival confrontation. Before he could respond, she turned and walked away, rejoining her sister and the boys. Beckham watched as they disappeared into the crowd, the sound of their laughter fading into the carnival's symphony. He stood there for a long time, clutching the napkin, watching the families around him with new eyes. Every father pushing a stroller, every mother wiping a child's face, every moment of tenderness he'd been too busy to notice. It all felt like a revelation. His phone buzzed again. This time he turned it off. The next morning, Beckham sat in a small cafe in Virginia Highland, nursing his third cup of coffee. He'd arrived 30 minutes early, unable to concentrate on anything else. The napkin with Soraya's number sat on the table beside his phone, creased from how tightly he'd gripped it the night before. He'd barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those three boys' faces, saw the way they moved with his mannerisms, heard their laughter that reminded him of his own childhood. The cafe door chimed, and she walked in. Soraya looked different in daylight. Still beautiful, but there was a strength in her posture that hadn't been there 6 years ago. She wore jeans and a simple blouse, her hair pulled back in a loose bun. She moved with the confidence of someone who had learned to navigate the world on her own terms. She spotted him immediately and walked over, sliding into the chair across from him without ceremony. "You look like hell," she said, not unkindly. "I didn't sleep." "I imagine not." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 6 years settling between them like a physical presence. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked finally. Soraya's jaw tightened. "I tried. Do you remember the night before you left for Hong Kong? I came to your office at 9 p.m. because I'd been trying to get 5 minutes alone with you for 3 days. The memory hit him like a physical blow. She'd come to his office looking nervous, wringing her hands. He'd been packing for his flight, stressed about the expansion deal, completely focused on the presentation he had to give the next day. "I told you I needed to talk to you about something important," she continued. "You said, 'Not now, Soraya. I have too much on my plate. We'll talk when I get back.'" He remembered. God, he remembered. She'd looked like she wanted to say more, but he'd been moving around the office, grabbing files, checking his phone. Completely dismissive. "But you didn't come back," she said. "Not for 4 months. And by then I was showing, I was scared, I was alone, and I knew exactly what your reaction would be. You should have told me anyway. Why? So you could pressure me to get rid of them? So you could throw money at the problem and hope it would disappear?" Her voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. "I knew you, Beckham. I knew your priorities." He wanted to argue, to defend himself, but the words stuck in his throat. Because she was right. 6 years ago, he would have seen a pregnancy as a problem to be solved, an obstacle to his carefully planned future. "I thought there was one child," he said weakly. "There might have been if you'd bothered to ask. But you didn't. You made it clear that my personal life was an inconvenience to you, so you just disappeared. I took control of my life. I found a new job, moved to a better neighborhood, built a support system. I did what I had to do. With my children." "With my children," she corrected firmly. "You forfeited any claim to them the moment you walked out that door." The words hit him like a slap. He stared at her, seeing not the quiet, accommodating secretary who used to organize his calendar and book his flights, but a woman who had been forged by necessity into something stronger. "What are their names?" he asked. She hesitated, then answered, "Micah, Roman, and Isaiah. They're 5. Triplets." Yes, born at 34 weeks, spent 6 weeks in the NICU. Roman had breathing problems. Isaiah was the smallest. Micah was the only one strong enough to come home on schedule. He imagined her sitting alone in a hospital, watching over 3 tiny babies, dealing with medical decisions and sleepless nights without any support. The image made his chest tight. You went through all of that alone. Not alone. I had my sister, my parents, my church, people who actually showed up when I needed them. The barb hit its mark. He looked down at his hands, noting the expensive watch, the manicured nails, the soft skin that had never known real hardship. I want to meet them properly, he said. Why? Because they're my sons. Biology doesn't make you a father, Beckham. Being there makes you a father. Midnight feedings make you a father. School plays and scraped knees and bad dreams make you a father. What exactly have you done to earn that title? He met her eyes. Nothing. But I want to start. She studied him for a long moment, searching his face for something. Sincerity, maybe, or the depth of his commitment. They don't know about you, she said finally. They know their father isn't around, but they don't know why. They don't know your name. What do they think happened? They think you live far away, that you're a businessman who travels too much to visit. It's not entirely untrue. And they're okay with that. They're children. They accept what they know, but they ask questions, especially Isaiah. He's the most curious. Beckham felt a strange flutter in his chest. What kinds of questions? Whether you look like them, whether you like the same foods, whether you think about them. She paused. Whether you love them. The words hung in the air between them. What do you tell them? I tell them that love is complicated, that grown-ups sometimes make mistakes, that what matters is how we treat the people in our lives right now. And if I want to be in their lives now, then you'll have to prove it, not with money or grand gestures, with time, with consistency, with showing up even when it's inconvenient. She leaned forward. These boys have never been disappointed by a father figure because they've never had one. If you're going to be in their lives, you better be all in, because I won't let you break their hearts the way you broke mine. 2 days later, Beckham stood on the front porch of a modest 2-story house in Decatur, holding a bag of books and fighting the urge to run. The neighborhood was quiet, tree-lined, with well-maintained lawns and bicycles in driveways. It was the kind of place where children played in the streets and neighbors knew each other's names, so different from his sterile downtown penthouse. Soraya opened the door before he could knock. She wore yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her hair in a messy bun. She looked like she belonged here, comfortable and at ease. "You're early," she said. "I've been sitting in my car for 20 minutes. Nervous? Terrified?" She smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her since the carnival. "Good. That means you care." She led him inside. The house was warm, lived in, with family photos covering the walls and children's artwork displayed on the refrigerator. Toys were scattered across the living room floor in organized chaos. The air smelled like cinnamon and vanilla, like someone had been baking. "Boys," Soraya called, "come meet our guest." 3 pairs of feet thundered down the stairs. The boys appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath, looking at Beckham with open curiosity. "This is Mr. Maddox," Soraya said. "He's the friend I told you about." Micah, the tallest, stepped forward first. He had Beckham's determined chin and the same way of tilting his head when he was thinking. "Are you really, really tall? Or is everyone else just short?" Roman, the middle child, stayed closer to Soraya. He had her thoughtful eyes, but Beckham's reserved nature. "Mom says you know about computers." Isaiah, the smallest, bounced on his toes. His energy was infectious, and when he smiled, Beckham saw his own childhood grin reflected back at him. "Do you have any games on your phone?" "I brought something better," Beckham said, holding up the bag. "Books." The boys exchanged glances. Isaiah's face lit up. "What kind of books?" "Adventure books, science books, books about building things." "Can we see?" Micah asked. They spent the next hour on the living room floor, books spread around them like a treasure map. Beckham read aloud while the boys asked questions, interrupted with their own stories, and gradually relaxed around him. Roman was fascinated by a book about robotics. Could you really build a robot that does your homework? Technically, yes, Beckham said, but then you wouldn't learn anything. What if you built one that helped you learn instead? That's a much better idea. Isaiah loved the adventure stories, acting out scenes with dramatic flair. And then the pirate said, "Give me your treasure or walk the plank." "What would you do?" Beckham asked. "I'd make friends with the pirate. Maybe he's just lonely." Micah preferred the science books, studying the diagrams with intense concentration. "How do rockets work?" "It's about equal and opposite reactions. Want me to show you?" They built a simple rocket out of a plastic bottle and baking soda. When it launched across the backyard, all three boys cheered. Soraya watched from the kitchen window, and Beckham caught her smiling. As the afternoon wore on, the boys' initial shyness disappeared. They showed him their rooms, their toys, their artwork. Isaiah demonstrated his ability to do a cartwheel. Roman played a song on his keyboard. Micah explained his elaborate Lego city. "It has a hospital and a school and a library," Micah said. "And this is where the mayor lives." "No jail?" Beckham asked. "Nah. If someone does something bad, they have to help fix it, like community service." "That's a good system. Mom says fixing things is better than punishing people." When it was time for dinner, Soraya invited him to stay. They sat around the kitchen table, the boys chattering about their day, passing plates of homemade lasagna and garlic bread. "Mr. Maddox," Isaiah said, "do you have any kids?" Beckham's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. He glanced at Soraya, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "I do," he said carefully. "3 boys. Are they our age?" "Exactly your age." "Do they live with you?" "No, their mother takes very good care of them." "Are you divorced?" Roman asked. "We were never married." "Oh." Isaiah considered this. "Do you miss them?" Beckham looked at these 3 boys, his boys, and felt his throat tighten. "Every day." "Maybe you could visit them more," Micah suggested, "if their mum says it's okay." "Maybe I could." After dinner, Soraya announced bedtime. The boys groaned, but began their routine without much protest. Beckham helped clear the table, feeling strangely domestic, strangely content. "You can say goodnight if you want," Soraya said. "They'd like that." He found them in their shared bedroom, teeth brushed, pajamas on. Roman was already under the covers with a book. Isaiah was bouncing on his bed, trying to burn off the last of his energy. Micah was organizing his bookshelf. "Good night, Mr. Maddox," they chorused. "Good night, boys." "Will you come back?" Isaiah asked. Beckham looked at their faces, so hopeful, so trusting. "If it's okay with your mom." "It's okay with us," Micah said. As he walked toward the door, Roman called out, "Mr. Maddox?" "Yeah." "I hope your boys know how cool their dad is." Beckham had to stop in the hallway to compose himself. Over the next few weeks, Beckham became a regular fixture at the house in Decatur. He came for dinner twice a week, helped with homework, attended school events. Slowly, carefully, he began to build relationships with his sons. Each boy was different, requiring a different approach. Micah was the leader, serious and thoughtful. He liked projects that challenged his mind. Beckham taught him basic coding, and they spent hours building simple programs on an old laptop. "What if we made a game?" Micah suggested one evening. "What kind of game?" "Something that teaches people about recycling. Mom says we need to take better care of the planet." Roman was artistic and introspective. He composed songs on his keyboard and wrote stories in a journal. Beckham learned to listen carefully, to ask questions that drew him out. "I wrote a song about space," Roman said one day, playing a haunting melody. "It sounds lonely," Beckham observed. "Space is lonely, but it's also full of possibilities." Isaiah was pure energy and joy. He loved physical activities, games, and making people laugh. Beckham found himself running around the backyard, playing tag and hide and seek with an enthusiasm he hadn't felt in decades. "You're fast for an old guy," Isaiah said after a particularly competitive game of soccer. "Old guy? Mom says you're middle-aged. That's old, right?" Thanks for the reminder. Soraya watched these interactions with cautious approval. She didn't make it easy for him, but she was fair. When he proved himself reliable, she gave him more responsibility. When he struggled, she offered guidance. Roman's been asking about his father more often, she told him one evening after the boys were in bed. What does he want to know? Whether you're proud of him, whether you think he's smart, whether you wish he was more like his brothers. He's perfect exactly as he is. Then tell him that. Children need to hear these things. Beckham began to understand that being a father wasn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It was about showing up consistently, about listening, about being present for the small moments that made up a life. He attended Micah's science fair, where his son presented a project on renewable energy. He sat through Roman's piano recital, watching his quiet son transform with confidence at the keyboard. He cheered from the sidelines as Isaiah scored his first goal in youth soccer. But it wasn't just about the boys. Slowly, carefully, he began to rebuild his relationship with Soraya. "You're different," she said one evening, as they cleaned up after dinner. "How so?" "You listen now. You ask questions. You care about the answers." "I always cared." "No. You cared about results, about outcomes. Now you care about the process." She was right. Somewhere along the way, he'd stopped focusing on the destination and started paying attention to the journey. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning. Beckham was in his office, reviewing quarterly reports, when his assistant buzzed him. "Mr. Maddox, there's a woman on the line. Says it's about your boys." His blood ran cold. "Put her through." "Mr. Maddox, this is Mary Chen, the school nurse at Decatur Elementary. I have Isaiah here with me. He's had an accident on the playground." "What kind of accident?" "He fell from the monkey bars, possible concussion. We can't reach his mother." "I'll be right there." Beckham was out of his office in seconds, leaving confused executives and abandoned meetings in his wake. The drive to the school felt endless, his mind racing with worst-case scenarios. He found Isaiah in the nurse's office, sitting on a cot with an ice pack pressed to his head. His face was pale, but he smiled when he saw Beckham. "Mr. Maddox, I flew like Superman, but I forgot to stick the landing. How do you feel, buddy?" "My head hurts, and I'm kinda sleepy." The nurse explained the situation. Isaiah needed to be checked for a concussion, but she couldn't reach Soraya. Her phone was going straight to voicemail. "I'm his father," Beckham said. "I can take him. I'll need to see identification and confirm with the mother. She's at work. Her phone might be dead. This is my son, and he needs medical attention." The nurse hesitated. Beckham pulled out his phone and showed her photos of him with the boys, recent pictures that clearly showed their relationship. "Please," he said. "We can sort out the paperwork later." At the hospital, Beckham held Isaiah's hand while they waited for test results. The boy was drowsy but alert, chattering about the playground accident with the resilience of childhood. "I was trying to do the whole monkey bars without stopping," Isaiah explained. "Roman bet me I couldn't do it." "And what happened?" "I made it to the middle, but then I got tired. My hands were all sweaty." He looked at Beckham seriously. "Do you think I'm brave?" "I think you're the bravest person I know." "Braver than Superman?" "Superman is fictional. You're real. That makes you much braver." Isaiah considered this. "Will you tell Mom I was brave when she gets here?" "I'll tell her you were the bravest." Soraya arrived 30 minutes later, breathless and panicked. She'd been in a meeting with her phone on silent, and when she finally saw the messages, she'd driven straight to the hospital. "Is he okay?" she asked, rushing to Isaiah's bedside. "I'm fine, Mom. Mr. Maddox stayed with me the whole time. He told the doctors I was brave." "Did he?" Soraya looked at Beckham with something like gratitude. "Mild concussion," the doctor reported. "He'll need to rest for a few days, but he should make a full recovery." That evening, after they'd gotten Isaiah settled at home with strict instructions to take it easy, Soraya found Beckham on the front porch. "Thank you," she said, "for being there. I told you I wasn't going anywhere. You left work in the middle of the day. I know how important those meetings are to you." He looked at her, this woman who had raised his children alone, who had built a life from nothing, who had never asked him for anything. "They're not more important than this," he said. "Than him. Than any of you." She sat beside him on the porch swing, close enough that he could smell her perfume, feel the warmth of her body. "I used to think you were incapable of change," she said quietly. "I thought you were too set in your ways, too focused on your career to ever put family first." "I was. But you're not anymore." "No, I'm not." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "The boys asked me something yesterday," Soraya said. "What?" "They asked if you were their real father." Beckham's heart stopped. "What did you tell them?" "I told them the truth. That biology doesn't make someone a father, but that you're working very hard to become one." "And what did they say?" "Micah said he already knew. Roman said he was glad. And Isaiah said he hopes you'll teach him how to do the monkey bars properly." Beckham laughed, feeling lighter than he had in years. "There's something else," Soraya said. "They want to know if they can call you Dad." The word hit him like a physical force. Dad. The title he'd never thought he wanted, never thought he deserved. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think," she said, "that you've earned it." 6 months later, Beckham stood in his bedroom, staring at a small velvet box. Inside was a ring he'd chosen carefully, not the flashy, expensive diamond he might have selected years ago, but something simpler, more elegant. A ring that spoke of commitment rather than wealth. He'd been planning this for weeks, orchestrating every detail with the same precision he once brought to business deals. But this was different. This wasn't about closing a deal or securing a contract. This was about building a future. The boys were in on it, of course. They'd been practically vibrating with excitement all week, whispering among themselves and shooting him conspiratorial looks. Isaiah had asked no fewer than 17 times if he was sure Soraya would say yes. "What if she says no?" Roman had worried. "Then we'll keep trying," Beckham had assured him. "Sometimes the best things take time." Now, as he prepared to leave for dinner, his hands shook slightly. He'd faced down hostile takeovers, negotiated billion-dollar deals, given presentations to rooms full of skeptical investors. But nothing had ever felt as important as this moment. The dinner was at their favorite restaurant, a small Italian place where the boys could be loud and messy without judgment. Soraya had dressed up, wearing a blue dress that brought out her eyes and her hair in loose curls around her shoulders. "You look nervous," she observed as they walked to the car. "Do I?" "You're doing that thing where you adjust your tie every 30 seconds. I'm not adjusting my—" He stopped, realizing he was doing exactly that. "Okay, maybe I'm a little nervous." "Why?" "You'll see." The boys chatted excitedly during dinner, talking over each other in their enthusiasm. Micah had won first place in the school science fair. Roman had been selected for the advanced music program. Isaiah had finally mastered the monkey bars with Beckham's patient coaching. "And then," Isaiah said, dramatically reenacting his playground triumph, "I swung from bar to bar like a monkey ninja." "A monkey ninja," Soraya laughed. "It's the best kind of ninja. They're stealthy, and they can swing from trees." After dinner, they walked to the nearby park. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the grass. The boys ran ahead to the playground while Soraya and Beckham followed slowly. "This is nice," Soraya said. "All of us together like this." "It feels right," Beckham agreed. "Like this is how it's supposed to be." She glanced at him. "You're being unusually philosophical tonight. I've been thinking a lot lately, about family, about what matters." "And what conclusion have you reached?" "That I've been an idiot for most of my adult life." She laughed. "That's quite an admission. I spent so many years chasing things that didn't matter. Money, status, recognition. I thought those things would make me happy, make me feel complete. And now? Now I know that happiness isn't something you achieve. It's something you build day by day with the people you love." She stopped walking, turning to face him. "Beckham, I love you," he said simply. "I love the woman you were, and I love the woman you've become. I love how you've raised our boys, how you've built this beautiful life. I love your strength and your kindness and your ability to forgive." "Beckham," What are you? I love how you make me want to be better. How you've shown me what it means to be a father, a partner, a man worth loving. He dropped to one knee, pulling out the ring box. The boys who had been watching from the playground came running over. Soraya Jameson, he said, his voice steady, despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. Will you marry me? Not because of the past, not because of the boys, but because I can't imagine a future without you in it. She stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Around them, the boys held their breath. Yes, she whispered. Yes, of course, yes. The boys erupted in cheers, tackling both of them in an enthusiastic group hug. Beckham slipped the ring onto her finger, marveling at how perfectly it fit, how right it looked there. Did you know about this? Soraya asked the boys through her tears. We helped pick the ring, Isaiah announced proudly. And we helped plan the whole thing, Micah added. Roman wrote a song for the wedding, Isaiah said, but it's a surprise. You wrote a song? Soraya looked at her middle son, who blushed and nodded. It's about families that grow instead of break, Roman said quietly. That night, after the boys were asleep, Beckham and Soraya sat on the porch swing, her head on his shoulder, her hand in his. I can't believe we're really doing this, she said, getting married. Building a life together, being a family. Are you having second thoughts? She lifted her head to look at him. No, but I need you to understand something. This isn't just about us anymore. We have 3 boys who are watching everything we do, learning from every choice we make. If we do this, we're committing to them as much as to each other. I know. And if you ever hurt them, I won't. If you ever put work before family again, I won't. If you ever make them feel like they're not enough, Soraya. He cupped her face in his hands. I spent 6 years learning what it means to lose a family. I'm not going to make that mistake again. She searched his eyes, looking for any trace of doubt, any hint of the man who had once walked away. I believe you, she said finally. Good, because I'm all in. Completely, totally, irrevocably in. Even when Isaiah tracks mud through the house? Even then. Even when Roman practices piano at 6 in the morning? Even then. Even when Micah tries to reprogram your phone? Especially then. She laughed, settling back against his chest. We're really doing this. We really are. The wedding was held in Soraya's parents' backyard, beneath a canopy of white roses and twinkling lights. It was small, intimate, filled with the people who mattered most. Soraya's family, a few close friends, and the boys, who served as ring-bearers and were so excited they could barely stand still. Soraya wore a simple cream dress that flowed when she walked, her hair pulled back in an elegant updo with small flowers tucked behind her ears. She looked radiant, glowing with happiness. Beckham wore a navy suit and a tie that the boys had helped him pick out. His hands shook slightly as he watched her walk down the aisle, but his smile was steady. The ceremony was officiated by Soraya's uncle, a minister who had known her since she was born. He spoke about love that endures, about families that are built rather than born, about second chances and new beginnings. Do you, Beckham, he said, take Soraya to be your wife, to love and cherish, to honor and protect, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live. I do. And do you, Soraya, take Beckham to be your husband, to love and cherish, to honor and protect in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, as long as you both shall live? I do. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. The kiss was gentle, full of promise, surrounded by the cheers of family and friends. When they broke apart, the boys were the first to reach them, wrapping their arms around both their parents in a group hug that nearly knocked them over. We're really a family now, Isaiah shouted. We were always a family, Soraya said, kissing the top of his head. Now we just have the papers to prove it. Roman stepped forward with his keyboard. I wrote something for you, he said quietly. He began to play, his fingers dancing across the keys with surprising maturity. The melody was sweet and hopeful, speaking of journeys that lead us home, of love that finds a way, of families that grow stronger through forgiveness. As the last note faded, There wasn't a dry eye in the backyard. Later, as the last guests departed, and the boys were tucked into bed at their grandparents' house, Beckham and Soraya stood in the backyard, surrounded by the remnants of their perfect day. "Any regrets?" Soraya asked. "About marrying you?" "Never." "About leaving Westlock? About changing your entire life?" Beckham pulled her closer. "Soraya, I spent 42 years building the wrong life. I'm not going to waste another day regretting the decision to build the right one. Even when the boys are driving you crazy?" "Especially then." She laughed, the sound like music in the quiet night. "We're really doing this. We really are." 3 months after the wedding, the Maddox family settled into their new routine. They had moved into a larger house in the same neighborhood, one with a big backyard and enough room for everyone to spread out. Beckham had started his own consulting firm, working with small businesses instead of corporate giants. The transition wasn't without its challenges. Beckham had to learn the rhythms of family life, the chaos of school mornings, the negotiation required to get 3 boys to bed on time. "You're treating parenting like a military operation," Soraya observed one morning as she watched him efficiently pack 3 lunchboxes. "Is that bad?" "It's adorable. And effective." She kissed his cheek. "But remember, they're children, not corporate executives. Sometimes chaos is okay." He was learning that too. Like the morning Isaiah decided to paint his bedroom walls with finger paints, or when Roman's science experiment exploded all over the kitchen, or when Micah took apart the toaster to see how it worked. "Dad, I think I broke it," Micah said, standing over the dismantled appliance with a guilty expression. "Did you learn anything?" Beckham asked. "Yeah, toasters are more complicated than I thought." "Then it wasn't a waste, but next time, ask first." These moments became the foundation of their new life. Beckham learned to laugh at spilled milk, to find joy in crayon marks on his work papers, to treasure the sound of running feet and slamming doors that meant his house was full of life. One evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Isaiah made an announcement. "I told my teacher about my dad today," he said proudly. "What did you tell her?" Beckham asked. "That you used to be really important, but now you're just our dad." "Just our dad?" Beckham raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, it's better than being important." Roman nodded seriously. "Important people don't have time for piano recitals." "Or science fairs," Micah added. "Or soccer games," Isaiah finished. Beckham looked at his wife, who was smiling at him with such love and pride that it took his breath away. "You know what?" he said. "You're absolutely right. Being your dad is the most important job I'll ever have." That night, after the boys were in bed, Beckham found Soraya in their bedroom, looking at the photo album from their wedding day. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we'd never met again?" she asked. "Every day," he said honestly. "And it terrifies me." "Why?" "Because I would have spent my whole life thinking I was successful, never knowing what I was missing." She closed the album and looked at him. "I used to be so angry with you, for leaving, for not being there when I needed you most." "You had every right to be angry, but I'm not anymore, because if you had stayed back then, if you had been there from the beginning, you wouldn't have been the man you are now. You wouldn't have learned what you needed to learn." "And what's that?" "That love isn't something you achieve, it's something you choose, every day, in the small moments, in the hard moments, in the moments when it would be easier to walk away." Beckham pulled her into his arms. "I choose you every day for the rest of my life. And I choose you." 5 years later, the annual Westlock Ventures Company picnic was in full swing when Beckham Maddox arrived with his family. He no longer worked for the company, but as a founding partner, he was still invited to major events. Soraya carried a basket of homemade cookies, while the boys, now 10 years old, raced ahead to the playground. They had grown taller, their personalities more defined, but they still had that same infectious energy that had captivated Beckham from the first day he met them. "Beckham," his former colleague Sarah waved from across the park, "how's retirement treating you?" "I'm not retired," he laughed. "I'm just doing work that matters." "And how's the family business?" He watched as Isaiah helped a smaller child reach the monkey bars, as Roman sat with a group of kids who looked lonely, as Micah explained something complex to anyone who would listen. "It's the best investment I ever made," he said. Later, as the sun set over the park, the Maddox family sat on a blanket, sharing ice cream and watching the boys play one last game of tag. "Dad," Micah said, flopping down beside him, "Marcus's dad said you used to be really rich." "I still am," Beckham said, "just not with money." "What are you rich with?" Isaiah asked, always curious. Beckham looked at his wife, at his 3 sons, at the life they had built together. "Time," he said. "I'm rich with time and love, and moments like this." "That's better than money," Roman said matter-of-factly. "Much better," Beckham agreed. As they packed up their picnic, Soraya slipped her hand into his. "Any regrets?" she asked, their old ritual. "Just one," he said. "What's that?" "That it took me so long to find my way home." She squeezed his hand. "You found us when you were ready to be found. And I'm never letting go again." "Good," she said, smiling, "because we're not going anywhere." They walked to the car together, the boys running ahead, their laughter echoing in the evening air. Behind them, the corporate world continued its endless pursuit of success and profit. But ahead of them lay something far more valuable, a simple house in a quiet neighborhood, where love was measured not in dollars and cents, but in bedtime stories and scraped knees, and the sound of 3 boys calling him Dad. Beckham Maddox had finally learned the difference between being successful and being fulfilled, and he had never been happier. Sometimes the most important discoveries happen when we're not looking for them. Sometimes the best investments are the ones we make with our hearts, and sometimes the family we need most is the one we almost walked away from.